Let's go Dolphins! There are decisions being discussed that could take this franchise to a new level or make fans question everything again. And the craziest part? Most people still have no idea what's really going on. Because, while everyone is focused on the obvious names, there's a hidden layer of tension, strategy, and risk that's starting to surface, and it involves players you might not expect. Scenarios no one is fully prepared for, and choices that could define the Dolphins for years to come. But here's the real question. Are the Dolphins about to make a bold move that will shock the league, or will they play it safe and risk losing something special? I'll explain everything to you. But before we go any further, make sure you like the video right now, but only if you truly believe this team is heading in the right direction. And I want to see who the real optimists are in this fan base. Go to the comments and write right now. I trust the Dolphins. The best is yet to come. Let's get straight into it. According to the latest developments, edge rusher Ruben Bain has been at the center of renewed attention after reports resurfaced regarding a tragic car accident back in March 2024. The incident involved careless driving and sadly resulted in the passing of a passenger weeks later. Now, at first glance, you might think this kind of situation would shake up his draft stock completely. But here's the twist. NFL teams already knew about it. This is not new information inside league offices. Insiders confirmed that every front office had been aware of the situation long before it became a headline again. And that changes everything. Because instead of seeing a dramatic fall, what we're actually hearing is that Bain's evaluation remains largely intact. Teams are focusing much more on his physical traits and on-field production rather than this off-field incident. And speaking of traits, there's one detail that keeps popping up: his arm length. It's among the shortest ever recorded for an edge rusher at the combine since 1999, which is raising eyebrows among scouts. That, more than anything else, could influence where he lands. But let me ask you this. If a player with high-level production, strong character reviews from his time at Miami, and elite pass-rushing ability is sitting there at pick 11, do you pass on him because of arm length? Or do you trust the tape? Because from everything being said behind the scenes, Bain is still very much in play for Miami. And not just in play, he's one of the names that could realistically fall right into their lap. Now here's where things take another turn. On the offensive side of the ball, Francis Mauigoa, one of the most intriguing offensive line prospects in this class, is suddenly under the microscope. Reports indicate that he had to return for additional medical checks due to a back issue that caused discomfort late last season. And while he played every single game in college and showed incredible durability, this kind of concern hits differently when you're talking about an offensive lineman. Because it's not just about today, it's about longevity. There are already whispers that some teams believe he might eventually need a procedure to clean up the issue, even if it's not immediate. And if you're the Dolphins, a team that has struggled with injuries over the years, this becomes a massive decision point. Do you gamble on elite talent with a potential long-term risk? Or do you pivot to a safer option with a cleaner medical profile? And here's the real dilemma. What if this concern causes other teams to pass on him, and suddenly he's there at 11? This is exactly the kind of scenario that can define a franchise's future. We're talking about a player who started 42 games, showed versatility across the line, and fits perfectly into what Miami wants to build offensively. But at the same time, even a small concern about a back injury could change how the front office evaluates him, especially under a new leadership mindset that may prioritize durability more than ever. Because this decision is not just about talent, it's about philosophy, risk tolerance, and the identity this Miami Dolphins front office wants to build moving forward. And here's where things really start heating up behind the scenes. There are internal discussions happening right now about durability versus upside. For years, Dolphins fans have watched promising seasons get derailed by injuries. It's been a recurring theme, and it's something that cannot be ignored anymore. That's why this Francis Mauigoa situation is being analyzed from every possible angle. Even though he has been incredibly reliable throughout his college career, the idea that a back issue could resurface in 3 or 4 years is enough to make decision makers pause. At the same time, passing on a player with his level of talent is not something you do lightly. We're talking about someone who many believe is the best offensive lineman in the entire draft class, with the ability to dominate both as a tackle and potentially slide inside if needed. That versatility is exactly what modern NFL offenses crave. And for a team like Miami, protecting the quarterback and establishing consistency in the trenches is not optional, it's essential. But then you look at Ruben Bain again, and you start to understand why this debate is becoming so intense. Because edge rushers like him don't just grow on trees. Despite the concerns about his arm length, everything else checks out. Production? Elite. Motor? Nonstop. Impact on the field? Immediate. And perhaps most importantly, teams have done their homework on him as a person. By all accounts, he has been a positive presence within the Miami Hurricanes program, and that carries weight when franchises are making million-dollar decisions. So now imagine this scenario on draft night. The clock is ticking. Both players are on the board. The room is split. Half the staff is arguing that you cannot pass on a franchise offensive lineman, even with minor medical concerns. The other half is pushing for the edge rusher who can transform your defense from day one. And then there's the wild card factor. What if another team makes the decision for you? Because if someone like Cleveland or Arizona decides to take Mawagoa earlier than expected, suddenly the pressure is off, and Bain becomes the obvious choice. But if both are sitting there, that's when things get uncomfortable. That's when the front office earns their paycheck. And don't forget, there are other names quietly entering the conversation. Prospects without injury concerns, players who might not have the same ceiling but offer stability. That's the kind of option that becomes very tempting when you're trying to build something sustainable, not just exciting. This is why the 2026 vision for the Dolphins is so critical right now. It's not just about filling a need, it's about setting a tone. Are you a team that bets on elite talent regardless of risk? Or are you a team that prioritizes availability and long-term reliability? Because history has shown, getting this wrong can set you back years. Getting it right, it can change everything. And that's exactly why this pick at number 11 might be one of the most important decisions we've seen in recent Dolphins history. Because if you read between the lines, there are subtle clues pointing toward how this front office might approach this exact situation, and it's something Dolphins fans cannot afford to ignore right now. There's a growing sense that this new regime is trying to shift away from the patterns we've seen in previous years. Too many times, Miami has taken chances on players with incredible upside, only to deal with availability issues down the road. And while talent has never been the problem, consistency has. That's why this moment feels different. That's why this decision carries even more weight than just filling a position on the roster. When you look at Francis Mawagoa's situation again, it's not about what he is today. Because today, he's healthy, he's dominant, and he's proven he can handle the workload. The concern is what happens after the hits start piling up at the NFL level. We're talking about bigger, stronger, faster defenders attacking that same area every single week. And if there's even a small chance that his back becomes a recurring issue, that risk multiplies over time. Now flip it back to Ruben Bain. His concerns are measurable. Arm length, physical traits that don't fit the prototype. But here's the thing, those are the kinds of concerns that sometimes get overanalyzed. Because when you turn on the tape, you don't see limitations, you see production. You see a player who finds ways to win, regardless of what the measurements say. And in the NFL, that's what ultimately matters. So now the Dolphins are staring at two completely different types of risk. With Mawagoa, it's a long-term physical concern that could impact his career longevity. With Bain, it's a question of whether his physical profile will translate consistently at the next level. And here's where it gets even more intriguing, the possibility that Miami doesn't go with either. Yes, that's right. There's a real scenario where the Dolphins pivot entirely. If the medical evaluations on Mawagoa create just enough hesitation, and if Bain is not viewed as a perfect schematic fit due to those physical limitations, the front office could decide to go in a completely different direction. A safer player, a cleaner evaluation, someone who might not generate headlines on draft night but could become a foundational piece over time. And let's be honest, those are often the picks that end up defining great teams. But would fans accept that? That's the pressure. Because Dolphins fans are hungry. They want impact. They want players who can come in and change the trajectory of the team immediately. And both Bain and Mawagoa offer that in different ways. Passing on both would require serious conviction from the front office and a clear vision of what they're building. At the end of the day,